Hello, everyone. Casey Kendall, Prosperity North Advisors, coming to you from the 1010 Studios in Gilbert, Arizona. This is Casey's Corner, brought to you by Prosperity North Advisors. Very special guest today joining me, Brad Hall from Blue Fox Garage Doors. Thank you very much for being here, Brad.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
And I know what everyone's thinking. We are not related.
No.
We did not call each other. This is not blue shirt, black
This
shorts.
is my official tire, so
Perfect.
he is not paid for by Blue Fox.
There we go. Okay. So Brad, let's jump in. I'm super curious about garage doors. It's one of those things that you don't necessarily think about until it doesn't go up or it doesn't go down.
Yeah, for sure.
Or it's what would you even call it? Like xylophoned into your driveway.
Turned into an accordion.
Yeah. So give us let's start super broad.
Okay.
And then I'd like to narrow down as the conversation goes. So talk to me about a garage door. Like beyond just, hey, open and close and keep my garage safe and things out. How are you maintaining a garage door? Is there specific calibrations that go into it? What's going on?
What goes
with that?
into it? Right? Yeah.
But first, let's do this. Let's back up.
Okay.
Tell us about Blue Fox, your company.
Okay. So Blue Fox has been around since 2019. Started up, real small, and the original owner just had some experience and wanted to get the business going. And he got to a point that it was really busy, couldn't handle it on his own. So he brought me on to kind of start helping get some of the administrative tasks and started teaching me some of the ropes about garage doors. Long story short, he ended up moving out of state, and we have a new owner of Blue Fox, and then I run the day-to-day operations. So I didn't start out in the business seeking out for this kind of labor. It kind of found me, and I came from a field of a lot of red tape and a lot of paperwork from the behavioral health field.
Oh my gosh.
And I had been there for 8 years, and I just got really tired of the state, kind of poking their nose into things and making rules that just didn't make sense. And I just found that I really enjoyed doing things with my hands and just seeing a project start to finish, quoting someone, sending them designs, installing it, and then seeing, the finished product.
When you think about a garage door, it's one of those things you don't think about unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
But it could become, beyond your front door, really the characteristic of this is an introduction to what this house is.
Yeah. Yeah,
there's probably like HOA stuff that get involved. How do you work with your clients in an HOA situation on a garage door? Let's start like aesthetically thinking.
Yeah.
What does that process look like?
Yeah, so that's always a conversation that we have to keep in mind is, what does your HOA want, or what does it require? What does the customer really want? Like, we're not going to talk you into something that you don't really want. But a lot of the times the HOAs will allow people more, but a lot of people just kind of stick to the cookie cutter stuff.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of other things that you can do as far as design. There's short panel, there's long panel, there's beadboard, there's beadboard and carriage are kind of the same thing. You can flush designs are sometimes allowed. So there's lots of design options out there, and most HOAs, as long as it's painted according to whatever their regulations are, usually you have like a base and a trim color, usually as long as it's one of those, then the HOA is fine. But you always have to check. And that's what we advise is, like, if you're going to make a design change, you need to check. If you're going to keep it the same, then usually the HOA doesn't care.
I feel like you probably, because I changed out my front door and I had to go and submit like this is what color it's going to be, like to the architectural board.
Yeah.
And this is, what it looks like. And Now, I remember experiencing a little bit of frustration.
Yeah.
But, because because it's, somebody telling me what to do.
Yeah.
But it seems like you will be able to guide the homeowner through that process
Yeah.
as long as it's, nothing crazy.
Yeah, and with the nature of the business, we obviously tend to be more emergency based.
Okay.
So there's always that kind of factoring into it of availability versus getting a new design. Because if you get a new design, most of the time you have to order it and wait for it to come in.
Sure.
Because usually most of the garage doors are made in other states and then they're kind of bust in. There's a few manufacturers that make
Got
it
it.
locally, but so that's most of the time the deciding factor is like my garage door is completely inoperable, and we need to get a garage door quick. And so we have doors that we carry in our stock. I also have 7 different suppliers that I use locally. So most of the time I can find common designs and common colors in stock somewhere. But if you want to deviate and get like a different design, then that will affect.
And you could turn those around pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so it's a good segue.
Yeah.
So you had said most of the time someone's in like an emergency situation. Either there's catastrophic failure or you're stuck in the garage, you can't get in the garage, you came home from work, you push the button and you can hear it working, but it's just it's not
just
doing
whirring,
anything, right?
yeah.
And I've learned that, in fact, so randomly, I grew up in Southern California, so we were prone to earthquakes. And one of the things with earthquakes is, hey, your power could probably go out, but how do you get your car out of the garage if there's no power? And so my dad taught me, just pull on
tug
this
on the red
thing.
rope. Yeah, man.
Tug on the red rope, and now you can roll it up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to steal any thunder, but what are some maintenance issues, and what can someone do to avoid either a catastrophic situation or having to call you in an emergency situation?
Yeah. So the garage door is 2 main components, but they both work together. So there's the door itself and then the motor. So I'll kind of break them down individually first. So like maintaining your garage door, it should at minimum get lubricated about once a year. Now there is a caveat. I know lots of people out there love duct tape and WD-40, but neither of those should be used on a garage door, because what WD-40 does is it's a penetrating grease. So it will penetrate and it will get the dust to drip out of there. But what you want is a silicone-based lubricant that will spray on and it will stay on to prevent dust from getting inside ever.
Oh.
So that's a common misconception. You don't want to like grease the tracks. You don't want to do any of that. And honestly, like doing a lube and tune on your garage door is something that can easily be done. There's lots of videos out on YouTube.
How often should someone be lubing and tuning?
Once a year at least.
Once a year. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then that gets into stuff. What we do that's different from what a DIYer can do is we just kind of have the extra set of eyes and the experience that we can bring to it, so that if we see something that might become a problem in the future, we can do some preventative measures to make sure. So like a big example would be usually a dent eventually turns into a crack, and then a crack turns into a tear, and then a tear becomes a failure. So, usually that can happen from something as simple as like a kid running their bike into one of the panels. Wow. And then eventually over the years, you have to think when the garage doors open, it's, completely, and it's 150 pounds that are suspended in air. And so eventually that crack will cause a little droop, and then the sag will get worse and worse.
Sag will get you.
Yeah. So yeah, if your garage is open and you look up and you see like a smile instead of like a straight line, you don't want to see your garage door smiling when it's open.
Okay.
So that means that it's sagging.
Tip.
So
okay.
Yeah, just kind of standing in the back of the garage, looking at the garage when it's open. And that's something that we can do to be really preventative, to prevent those cracks from getting worse and worse.
Would that help with someone like in a home warranty situation? I can tell you, probably 3 or 4 years ago, we had a home warranty, and my garage door was making a sound, and it was like, I don't know. And we had somebody out, and they came out and said, well, first of all, you haven't properly maintained it, and so it's not going to be covered under any type of warranty or service warranty.
Yeah.
But they could bring it up to spec, so
Yeah.
to speak, rollers or whatever that meant. Is that part of the process that you can go through and help someone with?
Yeah, and kind of like a little caveat with like the home warranty stuff is, I personally don't care for home warranties because they essentially force the customer to purchase things that they may not be in a position to.
It never
do.
worked out for me either. It worked
Yeah.
out for a toilet seat.
There's always like a service call to go with it,
Yeah.
and then so like for an example, I had a home warranty a couple months ago. They said that there's a part in the motor called the logic board, and it's like a green circuit board like you see in in any kind of electronics, and it had gone bad because it was being the system was overloaded basically. So the capacitor had blown and the logic board had blown, and the home warranty company wouldn't do anything unless they allowed them to lubricate the garage door, do new rollers, because yes, all those things help, but it didn't it caused it, but it's not required,
Sure.
So
Well, I can tell you from an insurance perspective, as soon as a company
yeah.
takes ownership of that process,
Yeah.
then that becomes theirs.
Right.
And so you got to be a little
Yeah,
bit
I don't know
careful
how
with
deep
that.
we want to get into.
Yeah, no, let's not get deep at all. Let's keep this super light.
Yeah.
So when I think about the garage door and I look at it and I can picture it in my head, you've got if I'm inside my garage, you've got the back of the door. I see a chain thing that's connected to it, and I push the button and it should just open. But there's also like two big springs over here.
Yeah.
Those look like they're under a lot of tension.
Yeah, 100%.
If I tried to take those off, and I'm just a guy, if I try to take those off, are they gonna like cut me in half?
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, not to put it super serious, but yes, like the springs are by far the most dangerous thing on a garage door. So most garage doors are 7 feet tall, and the springs that are up there, there's usually one on both sides, and each one of those springs is wound around that tube 7 times.
Wow.
So if you're trying to make a change on the spring with just like a screwdriver without the winding bars that we have, and the proper know-how to make sure that you stay safe and that you're not in like the line of fire or the red zone of where not to touch,
Sure.
then if your hand's on it and it comes undone, you're gonna lose probably parts of your hand or get severe lacerations. So yeah,
It's gonna
that's
whip around.
yeah. It'll come undone. Those 7 spins, it'll come undone in less than a
Wow.
second.
Yeah,
So
I bet. I
yeah,
bet.
it can be pretty gnarly. If you want to take a deep dive, just Google garage door spring accidents.
Okay.
And if you're okay with some gruesome content,
Okay,
you can sometimes see some nasty pictures
That's
that
like,
people have posted.
Faces of unaliveness.
Yeah.
Do those have now my brain is going crazy. Do those have those springs? Could they just snap on their own? Like could I come outside in the morning, getting ready to go to work, and I go into my garage and there's an unwound spring just out?
No.
No. So
No.
it has to like be in motion.
No,
or let go of
not
somehow?
necessarily. Like when you say out, like you mean like off of the assembly.
Yeah.
So what you'll see is springs are made to fail in a way that is safe. So it can be very violent when a spring does break. A lot of people will say it sounds like a gunshot.
Oh wow.
Because of that, rapid release of tension, and then the spring spinning around 7 times to release that tension.
Yeah.
But when they fail, most of the time, there's no shards like spraying everywhere. They're made to fail at one particular point most of the time. So even if you are out in the garage, it's going to scare the crap out of you, but it's not going to hurt you.
Okay.
The only time that you might be in some kind of danger is the kind of like old type of spring where it's called extension springs, where the springs used to be mounted on the side of the garage, kind of above the track. But
Yeah.
as far as I know, I think those are no longer according to
that's
code.
what my parents had when I was
yeah,
a kid.
yeah,
With a big wooden heavy garage door. I have a story about that.
Yeah, wood
Maybe
doors were the way to go.
Maybe
a
we'll
bunch
get
of years
to
ago.
that.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about like the motor, right?
Mhm.
They sell it at Home Depot.
Yeah.
I'm a weekend warrior. What's stopping me from climbing up that ladder and swapping out the motor?
Nothing, honestly, and that's something that, like if you want to go that route, it's like we can,
Do you have to change the springs?
no. Like I said, the door and the motor, they're two different parts. They work in conjunction with together, but they operate in two separate ways. The garage door does all the heavy lifting. So the springs, you have to imagine like the springs are the muscle of the garage, and then the cables, which are those things that are kind of behind the rollers on both sides, those are essentially like the arms, and they're doing all the heavy lifting. So a common garage door weighs anywhere between 100 to 200 pounds, depending on the insulation level and windows and all those kind of things. So a spring is calibrated to be specific for that weight. So that 100 or 150 pounds the springs will make it feel like 5.
Got it.
So a good test to do to see if your springs are balanced. If you pull on that red rope from your motor to disengage it so you can open and close it manually, and then you should be able to lift your garage door with 2 fingers.
Wow.
Very minimal effort. And it should kind of rise up, and it should kind of level off and stop at certain points. Like at halfway, it should be able to hold its own weight.
Interesting.
Quarter of the way, it should be able to hold its own weight. It shouldn't rocket up, and it shouldn't be falling down.
Okay.
So either one of those would mean that either the springs, the most common reason is they just need to be tightened. And that's something that we do with like a
lubricant. They can be reused.
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned something, and so now I'm a little bit curious about this, and I've heard you share other pieces of information at various times that we've interacted. Is like the weight of the door, and so you mentioned insulation.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like foam installation or like even the spray can type of stuff. But anything that you add to it, including like paint,
Yeah.
I would imagine, is potentially weight. And so is the door calibrated for that specific of that door? And then if you start adding those variables, what happens?
Yeah, 100%. And that's exactly it. So springs are calibrated based off of, it's called IPPT. It's an abbreviation for inch pounds per turn, excuse me. So it's basically just a fancy way of saying, so if I show up to a garage and I don't know what the right springs are to use, then I throw a scale underneath and I take the width, the height, drum sizes, and I can punch it into an application that we use, and I can get the exact right springs for that particular door. So sometimes we do get calls of people reaching out and say, hey, I just want to add some insulation to my garage door, or I'd really like to add windows to the top of the garage door. And I always start as like, okay, that's great, but that's going to make it to where it's going to tip the scale. So usually anything beyond 10 pounds of additional weight is going to throw off the IPPT for a spring. So like at Home Depot and Lowe's, they sell like really thin like insulation kits. Those normally don't add a ton of weight, but I've seen a lot of people try to like DIY. They'll buy like some thick insulation that's like an inch thick, or they'll try to do like the spray in polyurethane can foam.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
That's the best insulator, but it's also very heavy. So it's going to add a ton of weight to the door, and it's going to throw off your spring. And your door will work, but it will make it to where the spring isn't doing as much lifting. And that's where the door and the motor will pick up the slack, but it's going to shorten the lifetime of your motor significantly because
So
it's working harder than it should.
yeah, absolutely. So if somebody were to add insulation or paint or anything that's going to throw off that weight, you could come out and either change the motor or change the springs to
Yep.
adjust to it, even if the motor's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the motor wouldn't necessarily have to be touched in that particular circumstance. I haven't really gotten into this, but yeah, like the motor, all it does is it just pushes it or pulls it in one direction.
And gosh, off the top of my head, I'm thinking like 3/4 horsepower, one,
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, and all that was just that the industry has kind of started to move away from the horsepower
Okay.
because most motors are DC motors, so now it's a variable speed, so it can be anywhere from half horsepower all the way to I think like 2.25 horsepower are what the DC motors are able to do. But basically what a DC motor is it increases its strength based off of what it's feeling.
Oh,
So that's
kind of like
obviously
a smart garage.
yeah, and it's much quieter that way. So it's not like full speed up and full speed down every single time. If it's running nice and smooth, the DC motor will kind of pick up on that.
Are there times where a door could be heavier than than it normally is, like at night or so? I'm just trying to.
No, so like after like you move into like a brand new house, or if you've had a new spring put on within like the last year, usually like you'll need a spring tightening within that first year, and then maybe again after like year 5. But usually after that, like the garage door doesn't get significantly heavier unless you add weight to it. So, like I have heard that paint will throw it off, but I haven't really
That'd be
seen
a
it.
lot of paint.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to add, like several layers in order for it to be more than 10 pounds. So I haven't seen, but I have seen if the door isn't painted correctly, then most of the time, like if they try to spray behind those like weather trim flaps,
Yep.
they keep the wind and the bugs out. That'll cause sticking.
Oh.
And that might throw it off because the motor will feel, hey, I'm having to pull too hard, and it'll stop itself.
And that'll like get it wobbly or
Yeah.
like lopsided.
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What is typically happening if you'll see it collapse on itself? What is that? Is that like a motor failure? Is that a spring failure?
What do you mean? Like if the door comes crashing down really
like
hard?
if it's guillotining you,
Yeah.
or maybe all 3 of the panels or the 4 panels or whatever are stacked up on top of each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, so that would be 100% like a spring issue, or it could potentially be that the cable has come off. But usually, if the cable comes off, it fails usually on one side or the other, so you end up with a
Yeah.
crooked garage door. So garage doors are actually really like they're made to fail in a way that it's not gonna like fall on your car, or like it's really safe.
Yeah.
But like when it does happen, like it looks terrible,
Sure.
and it can scare people, you know.
Yeah. I can see where it's could be a very violent thing.
Yeah, or like even in the open position, if it kind of gets crooked when it's in the open position, it can get crooked when it's and then the roller will pop out on one side,
Oh.
and then like one panel will kind of be drooping and kind of hanging down. So yeah.
Talk to us about. Well, I want to go back.
Yeah, whatever.
You had mentioned some innovations that have come out, changing to DC power and things like that. I equivalent that to like, buying a Tesla or something
Yeah.
like that. So now, you're getting away from that traditional, normally aspirated vehicle. That might be like the equivalent of the garage door. But have there been technologies come in where like it's a Bluetooth operation or things like that? And then so freaking randomly, the last time I bought a garage door opener, a generic garage door opener, I was shocked on how much it cost, because it was like $40 just to get a 1-button garage door opener.
Yeah.
That I had to program.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I've noticed is that, like in my truck and my wife's car, there's a button,
Yeah.
and I've never been able to figure out. Will you help
Yeah.
with the
100%.
like putting it in the car?
Yeah, it's called HomeLink. Yeah.
HomeLink.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
great. Yeah, most use HomeLink. There are a few that deviate from it. I think Tesla doesn't use HomeLink, but they have a similar setup where you can program it into your car. And yeah, if we're installing the motor for you, yeah, just reach out and ask. It's like, hey, I have the thing. Usually it's either in your rear view mirror or it's in your visor or something like that. And yeah, it's pretty simple. You know, like when you've done it 100 times,
Yeah.
it goes nice and smooth. But yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, you have to push the right buttons in the right sequence. And so yeah,
I feel like that's always one of those things where like my wife's like, the remote's not working. I wish you would just put it into the visor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know how to put it
Yeah.
into the visor.
But then, yeah, as far as new technology goes, I mean, there's definitely been some innovations with the doors themselves
Sure.
about like making them more safe and more sturdy and whatnot. But a lot of like the really cool ones are obviously with the motors because it has those electronic components. So like the newer motors, all motors now are Wi-Fi enabled.
Oh, wow.
So every manufacturer, as far as I'm aware, they have some kind of app that they use. We use LiftMaster primarily. That's a brand that we prefer and trust. And they have the MyQ app. And I can pull out my phone and I can open my garage door that's, 45 minutes away from
Really?
here. Yeah, I can open it right here from the office. Or if I just need a neighbor, is like, hey, I need to borrow a tool. It's like, yeah, let me pop open the garage for you,
Huh.
and you can get in. So that's super cool. And you can also see when your garage is open or closed.
Ah.
So if you're one of those people that drives down the street and says, I can't remember if I actually closed it or not, then you can just pull out your phone and see. But you can also even program it to say after it's been open for 5-10 minutes to just automatically close.
Interesting.
So I have that at my house. It's called TTC, time to close. And if you have kids, it's just the way to go.
Sure.
100%. Because got a wife, got the kids that leave the garage door open, and it'll beep and it'll flash and it'll let you know it's like, hey, I'm closing automatically. So it's not gonna like come careening down on it. So it's very safe.
I've had those situations where I've sat up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh my gosh, the garage door's
Yeah.
open.
Yeah.
And you go down there and sure enough, there
Yeah.
it is.
So that's one of the nice things with some of the new motors is just a lot of those like nice features. MyQ also has gotten into the home security space. So like
Okay.
you can also get like the same Ring doorbells through them. You can get the the locks and stuff like that. That's not something that we really do, but it is something that they do that they offer.
Absolutely. We've talked a lot. I've learned so much about garage doors. Again, it's one of those things you don't even think about. What would be before we get out of here? What's a good tip for someone who should be doing maintenance, and then what's the best way to get a hold of you for either that catastrophic situation or to get a quote to replace an existing door?
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. So, as far as like maintenance goes, best thing is just often it's just one of those things that's just forgotten. We have so many appliances and so many things in our homes that we just kind of forget about. So just once a year, show it some love. Give it a drink, give it some lubrication. And if you don't want to do it yourself, you can reach out to us. We do the annual maintenance. We can put you in our system and we can give you a call when it's due and we can schedule with you.
That's awesome.
And then as far as reaching out to us, you can call, you can text, you can email. My office person is incredible. She'll respond right away. And then if you're in an emergency situation, please let us know. We do prioritize cars stuck in the garage or anything like that. So
Very cool.
if there's something going on that is preventing you from leaving your home or something like that, just let us know. And if we can, we'll do our best to work it in. Because obviously leaving your home is super important.
Yeah.
So, and we rely on our cars. So, But yeah, anything that, and as far as getting a new garage door, it all depends. A lot of people are kind of like feeling the water and kind of dipping their toe in. But if you're serious about it, or if you just want some general information, we can give you some preliminary information to kind of get you going. Or if you're looking at changing the design, I have an entire binder full of all the different products that are available as far as new door designs. Every manufacturer has something different to offer. And after being in the industry for over 5 years, I've been able to kind of like navigate between. It's like, okay, who has the best quality? What color looks best? If I want this particular type of door, which one should I go with?
Sure.
And yeah, they all have their pros and cons, but I do have my favorite garage door supplier.
Okay.
So yeah, the process, we try to make it as easy as possible. And if you are changing the design, we can get you drawings. We can even take a picture. We can use like a picture from like Zillow or something like that, and I can paste and overlay a picture of what the new garage door is going to look like
For
for
HOA
you to submit to
approval.
your HOA
Very
approval.
cool.
So that sometimes helps them make a decision. But yeah, I mean, we're here to help. And some of my philosophies is just, if we're human, we make
Yeah.
mistakes from time to time, but we just want to do right by people and take care of them. So we're just honest, reliable, and upfront.
That's great.
That's what we try to emulate. And my biggest thing about running this business is like I take care of my guys that work for me, and I tell them all the time, just like take care of the customers like I'm taking care of you.
Yeah.
And that kind of company culture, I feel like, is lacking in a lot of the service industries.
Absolutely.
Where some of the other companies will kind of like run their guys ragged because that's just what has been the standard,
Right.
So, I have my guys back and they have mine. So that's one thing that I feel like we have an edge over everyone else.
That's great.
Is our company just has a great culture and good, awesome people that work for me.
Well, the garage door industry probably has its ups and downs, but you got
Yeah.
it under control.
That's right.
Awesome. Brad Hall, Blue Fox Garage Door, out of Queen Creek, but serving the entire
Yep.
valley.
All Valley, Cave Creek to Casa Grande, Buckeye to Gold Canyon. We service the whole valley.
That sounds awesome.
All right.
Brad, I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for stopping by.
You bet. Thanks, Casey, for having me.
If you'd like to be on Casey's Corner, please like, subscribe, share this video. Thanks very